In this training, we'll be modeling the refill coffee bar process. Now, before we go ahead and do that, little word of encouragement, we're almost there. We've covered the hardest process to model, which was the previous one relating to fulfilling the beverage order, specifically the prepare beverage order process. So from here on, it should be smooth sailing. So let's go ahead and click on Edit, Keep Current, and we will be modeling in swim lane mode this time around. So let's go ahead and expand this. I'm going to give ourselves a lot of breathing room this time around. And what we're going to be doing this time is a process that'll be triggered by two different events. One event will be just a general need to refill the coffee bar. And another event will be coffee bar refill request received. Now, as you'll recall, inside the previous training, we created a little side activity inside the prepare beverage order process for specific coffee bar refill requests. In this case, we'll see how these two can be connected together via an inter-process link. So before we can go ahead and do that, let's go ahead and model the entirety of this process. In this case, we start off by reviewing the coffee refill request. Little typo there. Once that's done, we can throw in another task called review current stock status, or better yet, review current stock levels. Now in this case, in the more generic trigger to this process, we can go straight to this task over here. Now, of course, this is a way of catching scenarios where you may have a general need, such as the start of the coffee shop's opening hours, or when they're closing up the coffee shop for that matter. So it's always interesting to put in all the different types of trigger points inside your process. Over here, once we're done with those two activities, we can drag and drop another gateway, and in this case, we'll be calling it a inclusive gateway. Let's connect these two together. And the reason why we're using an inclusive gateway is because we'll have three flows, one for milk supplies required, one for coffee supplies required, and one for cup supplies required. But as you'll note, those aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. A request could be for all three of them if we'd like, or it could be just for two of the three. So an inclusive gateway lets us choose one or more paths. So let's go ahead and model that quickly. The first path will be for milk supplies. So let's connect this here to this task over here. And we're going to call this refill milk supplies. We're going to give this an input-output of refill. We can reuse the same type over here, refills over here, and we can name it milk in the state. Similarly, if we go to the next section, we'll name this one refill coffee supplies. And lastly, refill cups. To make sure that we're being clear here, we're going to move this a bit closer to that task. We're going to add in input and output for coffee. We're going to do the same thing this time around for our cups. There we go. Let's do a quick save here. As we can see, we have an excited flow. Let's go ahead and replace that where it's supposed to go. Let's drag and drop a little end event denoting the end of this process. Connect all three of those to it. And we'll name this end event Coffee Bar Refilled. There we go. Now, let's do one little thing over here. Now, of course, if you're reviewing current stock levels, then that also creates an opportunity for you to submit a purchase requisition if you're running out of something. So let's create another end event over here that'll help us connect later on to the procurement process. Here we go. Let's actually double click on it and name link to procurement process. And we'll leave that on ice for now, and we'll come back to it later once we have our procurement process modeled. Let's do a quick save here. And now we can talk about this little item. We're going to be creating an inter-process link between this process and the coffee bar refill request end event that we modeled in the previous process. So let's go ahead and right-click on this start event, and we'll see here Edit IPL. Click on that. And now, if you'll recall, the previous process was named Prepare Beverage Order. So let's type that in. And there it is. Now, of course, once again, if you're sharing your environment with other individuals, then chances are they've already modeled that process. So just simply go into your picker over here and find your corresponding process set and process. Once that's done, then you'll pick a flow object. As we can see here, there's two of them. Of course, inside that process, we created two flow objects as end events. One of them was beverage order prepared, denoting the full end of that process. And the other one was, which is the one that we want, refills requested. So let's select that. Let's see what that does. Now we see a little link type icon underneath the event. If we click on it, we see that we're pointing towards a specific process, in this case, the prepare beverage order process, which is very interesting. Now, if we go ahead and save and close this process, because we're pretty much done modeling it, let's go ahead and click on this. You know what, just out of precaution, before we do that, let's make sure that you have the proper map settings. Make sure that under Expand IPL, you have your setting as enabled. If you don't, then go ahead and change that, hit Save Changes. And at this stage, if you were to click on that link, now you'll find that on one pool, you have the prepare beverage order process, and in the other, you have this refill coffee bar process. So essentially, you start seeing what is close to an end-to-end process. You can even expand different sub-processes within there, and you get an even deeper view of how your full process is conducted from one end to the other. Inside the next training, we'll be doing something very similar, but for the link towards the procurement process. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time.